Is it possible to beat a Pokemon game with no wild Pokemon encounters? Like, you know how you walk into grass and find Pokemon? Well, it turns out the calculation on that is just a percentage chance per tile of grass. So it's theoretically possible to walk through 100 tiles of grass and not even encounter a single wild Pokemon. Or you could save every 5 tiles and reload when you do encounter a Pokemon. So like, here's the first route of Pokemon Black 2. I need to walk to the other side of this grass. So first I save the game, then I try walking through. I got an encounter at the very last patch, so I have to reload the game, then try again. The next time, I make it through without having to even save in the middle. And here's a few other early game patches of grass. I had the idea watching Heroes 11 do minimum battle runs, where wild Pokemon encounters aren't counted as long as you instantly run away, which makes sense to me because theoretically all wild Pokemon are avoidable with luck or repels, and if you just run away it doesn't affect the game state, so it's better to just run away than to seriously try and avoid all wild Pokemon encounters. What I kind of disagree with though is that mandatory wild Pokemon battles are also skipped by running away. So like, here you run away from a Snorlax and the battle counter doesn't go up. And I understand reasons for why, and it does make it harder because otherwise I'd be an opportunity to catch a Pokemon or gain experience. But to me, that battle is different from all other wild Pokemon battles because it is mandatory, it can't be avoided with repels, and running does change the game state. So I want to do something that focused on the avoiding wild Pokemon aspect of minimum battles to actually see what it would look like to avoid all wild Pokemon battles instead of theoretically being able to avoid them. So the first obstacle is avoiding random wild Pokemon in mandatory grass or in caves. However, I've already shown you the method to avoid those. Saves coming. It can get annoying, but it will definitely get through any wild area. The second obstacle is those mandatory wild Pokemon battles. Now, I haven't replayed all the games just for this, so I might forget some instance where you're forced to fight a Pokemon, but the main issue is if the games have any, so just the ones I can remember are enough to disqualify them. So Kanto has Snorlax, Johto has Sudowoodo, and the remakes add legendaries. Hoenn has Zigzagoon, Kecleon, and legendaries. Black and White have legendaries. Kalos has Snorlax and legendaries. Alola has Totem Pokemon and legendaries. Galar has the Motostoke Gym and legendaries. Pikachu and Eevee are all about catching Pokemon, and it's the same for Legends Arceus. So, it doesn't seem very possible. That's a lot of games you can't do it in, but there was one that I haven't listed so far. As far as I can tell, no mandatory wild Pokemon battles. Pokemon Black and White 2. And since the mandatory legendary battles introduced in Generation 3, I think this is the only one where the legendary is entirely under the control of another trainer, and you cannot catch the legendary. So I wouldn't say that this Kyurem you have to fight is a wild Pokemon. This is a trainer battle with multiple stages. But there are still more obstacles. Another one is wild encounters are the main way to get new Pokemon, so without them, we're limited to gift Pokemon. And this not only increases the difficulty of battles, but also potentially limits the available HMs. Luckily, Black and White 2 only require Strength and Surf to complete, and both of which can be learned by Oshawott. As for the gift Pokemon we would have, it's not a great set. It's only Deerling and Azora, both obtained shortly after the 4th gym, but that team of 3 should be enough to complete the game. So I set off to try and complete Pokemon Black 2 without any wild Pokemon encounters. The first obstacle of note is a catching tutorial from Bianca. This is kind of a wild Pokemon encounter, but I would say this is Bianca's wild Pokemon encounter, not mine. I can't do anything here, so I think this is okay. Most games since the 3rd generation have had mandatory tutorials, so it can't really get around that one. After that, I navigated a forest with a lot of grass, resetting several times to avoid encounters. I beat the 1st gym. I walked past this trainer that told me to go catch another Pokemon so we could have a double battle. I beat the 2nd gym. I made it through this sewer that had encounters on every step like a cave would. I wasn't using repels this whole time as well, just to make it a bit more difficult. I beat Berg's gym full of grass types and Levany on his final team after a lot of grinding by fighting this trainer that will battle you every time you come back, allowing me to train without fighting wild Pokemon. And then I went to the desert to train to prepare to fight the electric type gym, and I found the TM for Dig, which Oshawott can learn. And I had to evolve all the way to Samurott, but with Dig and Return, I was able to beat Elisa's gym. And then I take a break from recording this for 2 months, because I had a lot of other things I had to do and like family to visit, but I was finally ready to work on the video again. And I complete one quick fight against Team Plasma before I find an unexpected obstacle. Motorcyclist Charles wanted to impress women, so he learned a new type of battle, rotation battles. This was so impressive that it gathered a large crowd blocking the road until I beat Elisa's gym. Now that I've beaten her, his rotation battle is over, so he might let me pass. If I beat him first. Well, 1 against 3 is a bit of a disadvantage, but I'm sure I could handle it. If he let me battle him. I know it's possible to have 3 Pokemon and then lose 2, so you'd only have 1 in the rotation battles. Just let me start with 1. I mean, I'm only 10 minutes away from getting the only other 2 Pokemon I'm allowed to get. If you just let me through, I'll be right back, and I can battle you with 3 Pokemon. Come on, I'm so close. Just there's no way around it. So turns out there's another problem resulting from not being able to catch more Pokemon: mandatory multi-Pokemon battles. This also affects Hoenn, I guess. Every single Pokemon challenge in Hoenn has to temporarily add a Magikarp to their team in order to be allowed to fight Tate and Liza, but that's not the kind of challenge I'm doing. Mine is, can you beat it without encountering any wild Pokemon? So no encountering wild Pokemon means no temporarily catching Pokemon to get past a mandatory battle. If this was a minimum battles challenge, which is related to, you'd need to add 2 for the 2 Pokemon you'd need to catch to get past this. So, in the end, it turned out there really isn't any main Pokemon game you can get through without ever encountering a wild Pokemon. But it's possible that maybe at least part of Scarlet and Violet can be beaten without encountering wild Pokemon. Apparently there will be 3 story paths, one of them about battling giant wild Pokemon, so not that. But the other story paths seem like they can be done separately, and so you can do the League Challenge and ignore the giant Pokemon, and fight the enemy team and ignore the giant Pokemon. So you might be able to do those without encountering any wild Pokemon. The enemy team is normally where you get the mandatory legendary battle, but it seems like it's a pretty different team from normal, so they might not have one. If there's an interesting answer to this question, I'll make another video on this. It's possible that, to get the motorcycle legendaries, you have to catch them in the first 10 minutes or something, and so it won't even be worth making a video to talk about it, but I'll look into it, and if there is something worth talking about, even maybe if it's not possible, but it's still interesting in some way, I'll try it, and maybe you'll be able to complete 2/3 of a Pokemon game without encountering any wild Pokemon. That'll be something. And so, subscribe to the channel to see if that video comes out.